Welcome to BizTips with Jenny Rice, bringing you insights from real entrepreneurs. No fluff, just raw, practical strategies from those who've been in the trenches. Whether you're launching, scaling, or pivoting, this podcast is your backstage pass to lessons, successes, and game-changing tips. Get ready to learn, take action, and level up. Let's dive in with our next guest.
Hi, this is Jenny Rice with BizTips Podcast. I'm so excited about our guest today, Joe Krueger, founder of Inspira Consultancy. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Why don't you start a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, I spent 20 years in the C-suite, leading family-owned companies, and a fair amount of that time was in the manufacturing industry. Also had an opportunity to lead a company in the B2B space. Those companies range in size from 12 million up to 100 million. And in the manufacturing, it was industrial equipment, consumer products, and hand tools and food. And in the B2B space was equipment sales and providing turnkey solutions for customers. And so in my role as Chief Operating Officer, one of the organization, I was the Chief Executive Officer. I had responsibilities for the entire enterprise. So I had oversight for sales and marketing, HR, finance, managed banking relationships. One of the companies was actually an ESOP, and so there was some other dynamics that were unique for that particular organization. And so I had the opportunity to lead these companies, build teams, senior leadership teams, middle management teams. And in the course of my experience, I discovered and learned that it was all about growing your team, your people, giving them the opportunity to take on responsibility and provide a place where they can be successful.
That's amazing. What a great background. I love what you said. You've been in all the different areas of business, so you've seen it all. You've seen businesses grow, and now you can take that into your coaching practice. So tell me more about what you do now.
Yeah, so it was a great transition, actually. So, as I was sitting and taking a step back and deciding what that next step was for me. And a little bit of that was driven by the fact that my last two roles, the organizations that I sat in, the leadership roles, they were acquired by much larger organizations. So I was one of those that was, fortunate enough to be sitting on the other side of the table. We were the company being acquired. So, when they get into restructuring and kind of looking at the organization, then my role was not necessary. And I certainly understood that. So it was a crossroads for me of deciding, did I want to, take that step and continue on that path, or perhaps look at becoming a coach and helping business owners. And that was the key decision point for me. So I decided that that was my next step for me in my journey. So I became a business coach, founded my company a little over 2 years ago, and I look to work with business owners, companies that are 3 million to 50 million. I need to segment those because there's different dynamics for different sizes. A $3 to $5 million company is different than a $10 to $15 million company. But my practice, what I do is I use that experience that I've gained and help business owners. And we focus on three key areas of time, team, and money. If you start drilling down into an enterprise and looking at an operation, I think you can really refine it down to those three key areas. And then within those key areas, I've got 21 different actions. I call them the silver bullets. The analogy of having that silver bullet as a solution. And so my 21 silver bullets, which then tie into my 5 steps to freedom and focusing on time, team, and money to help those owners.
Yeah. I love your model that is so clear on how you gather and analyze information with the companies, and then you provide the solutions based on their needs, their gaps, their performance, their goals, and things like that, with clarity so that they know, okay, I know this is where there's a gap. I know what I need to do now, and I'm going to go take action. And I'm imagining the results are fantastic because they are so fine-tuned to their business and their business needs.
Yeah, that's I think one of the real benefits is that we can drill down to that kind of detail. So, I start with I have a scorecard, call it the silver bullet, the assessment, the silver assessment. Um, and so what we do is, and the owner does that. So it's really a self-assessment, and it covers all 21 areas that I talk about. So they do an assessment, they go in, they score themselves between 1 and 5, and then that gives us a foundation to begin our discussion and our discovery conversations. And then through my conversations with the owner, we talk about what are those top three challenges, and that's that's really kind of a jumping off point. That's where you can start. But in the conversation, we can also at times discover maybe some things that they're not seeing, and and offer some input as to, well, I hear that, but there's also this issue over here, and I think if we talk about that and look at that, that could have some impact for
Right.
you. Yeah,
Yeah. So you're looking at silver bullets, you're looking at quick wins, you're looking at where are their biggest gaps, where can we address them, and then take action. How do we do that? What a great
e-
model. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's no different than what I had done in the past. I mean, it was really looking. Yeah, as we looked at the companies that we all worked in, where are the opportunities? Part of my responsibility was kind of figuring out where this strategic path was. What
Mhm.
was that right place for the organization? Just based on, again, you got external factors, internal factors. There's a number of things that are affecting the enterprise. Most importantly, external. And you
Right.
need to really look externally.
Yeah.
Um, and then really working with the leadership team to define, what is the strategy and how are we going to get there. So it's the
Right.
same thing with business owners. It's really what it comes down to is like, where are you going? What is your vision? What's
Hmm.
your purpose? And then also getting into discussions about processes, optimizing processes, and getting people aligned with processes. That's really critical.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot about people and that, it's an important criteria to look at when you're leading a business and leading people, which is a key thing that you mentioned in there. But it's so great that you're looking, they self-analyze, but they
Hmm.
might have blind spots and you can help reflect that back to them and then look at where they're going to identify the strategy to get there effectively and to fix those blind spots, to fix the issues, to increase the performance and to achieve their goals, which is ultimately the goal, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And it's a process of having that ongoing conversation. As a coach, I'm working with them side by side. I mean, I'm not my practice. I don't come in and go, okay, well, here's the issue, here's the problem, here's the solution, and then walk away.
right,
And say, I give you the blueprint and you go implement it. So
right,
in my practice, it's, a process where we get together every week. There's an accountability. Uh, could be 30 minutes, 60 minutes, up to an hour and a half, depending on the engagement. And define key performance indicators, which, kind of really give us that dashboard of understanding what's going on, where do we have some issues, what are we going to do to address that? And having the goals and objectives, of course, that we're all working towards. And
yeah,
so I'm there side by side. I'm walking that, taking that journey with the owner to help them get to where they're looking to go.
right,
Um, and we also talk about long term, as I talk about, the 5 steps to freedom. The ultimate, that fifth step is financial freedom.
Hmm.
for owners. And we talk about what that might look like. And that's not something that maybe in the next 12 months or 18 months, could be 5 years from now,
Right.
10
Depending
years
on
out from now. It's like, I want to exit, or I want my second generation to take the lead, or whatever that might be. And again, it's an ongoing conversation, and something that's going to continue, during my time working with them.
Yeah, that's so great. It's interesting that you're helping other businesses perform, increase, reach their goals. Let's switch it a bit and talk about you and your business since it's been around for 2 years. How do you, I guess, help yourself reach your goals and things like that? And what challenges have you faced as yourself as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's interesting because uh, I, when I take a step back and I take a look at my practice, there's some of those same dynamics, and it's kind of interesting because we talk about how so many times we understand, or we can help implementation for others, but we can't help ourselves.
Hmm.
I mean, it was always classic, for marketing. You could help someone market themselves, and help guide them. But then when it came to marketing yourself,
It's
you kind of
different.
struggle, it's just different, and trying to figure that out. And so, my biggest issue, as a solopreneur, and there's a lot of us out there. There are a lot of business coaches, there are a lot of consultants. And so having the marketing strategies and finding those ideal clients that really fit for my practice and what I do, that's been a challenge. Another challenge is coming from my background in that role that I've held. It was really a generalist role. I mean, you've got oversight on all these areas of the organization. So again, it's HR and sales and marketing, finance, operations, all of these different aspects of the enterprise. So I'm more of a generalist. And going to the market, what I've discovered is that's a challenge, being a generalist,
Hmm.
and so they talk about niche. What's your niche? And how do you niche down? And that's been, for myself with my practice, a challenge, and really figuring that out. And you have that concern that you're going to miss an opportunity, and by niching down, are you now narrowing your universe and
Yeah,
where those market opportunities are?
yeah,
And that's been a challenge for me. And then also from a marketing strategy, with so much going on today with the different channels, with social, especially with social media, and LinkedIn, is the place that I spend a lot of time. I mean, because again, that's the network, that's the
it's a B2B
professionals,
opportunity. Yeah,
it's the B2B opportunity, and that's where my ideal clients um, can be found, versus, say Facebook or Instagram. And I know there's businesses that do well on those platforms. For what I do, I haven't. Well, I don't believe that's the right place for me. So with the social media, which is LinkedIn, the strategies there with finding where those potential opportunities are, connecting with them, building relationships. Um, and one of the challenges today is that um, there's so much that's coming in your mailbox on LinkedIn, and so much of it is the salesy, spammy type of strategies, and we've all been, exposed to that. You get a connection request, and then 10 minutes later they're pitching you, and that doesn't work. I mean, so it's really about finding those connections that you can build a relationship, and have conversations, learn about them, and see how you can help.
mm,
And and I believe in paying forward and helping. And uh, with those types of relationships, then you can open up opportunities. But
Yeah.
really, the challenge has been I've focused on that. And what I've discovered is that you need to expand beyond that. So you need to also have strategies where you're doing email outreach. You know, it's kind of funny because long time ago, like I always joke in my past life, I started out as a salesman. I was a
Oh,
sales guy.
okay.
So long time ago. And that time you actually picked up the phone and you called people. You didn't
Hmm.
even have caller ID,
You're right.
you know, so you had to pick up the phone, you had to call people. And some of that today is still relevant. I'm finding that um there's still value there and
Yeah.
reaching out by doing that. So I have I've struggled in that area, and that's
Yeah.
been a challenge, and I'm kind of figuring that out at this point.
Yeah, I found when I wanted to connect with people specifically, I thought they were an ideal client. Little micro videos of introducing myself and saying, "Hey, I want to get to know you." Was like, "Hey, Marjorie or Jeremy, whatever their names were." It made it, I love what you're doing with this. That they can see you, they get to know you, and then they're like, "Hey, you're taking the time to give me a specific video." I find that works a long way too, especially if
Yeah.
you're able to identify your target market. So.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
it's easy to just, like 90-second video or 30-second video. Because then people watch it and go, oh, they're talking to me. So
Yes,
pretty
yes.
cool.
Um, so that's really been the challenge and kind of the crossroads that I found myself is figuring out what is that niche if I'm going to niche down.
Yeah.
Um, and not being all things to all people.
Yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
I think it's a good strategy for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Joe, as we end the podcast, do you have any tips for other entrepreneurs?
I would say it, probably similar to what this experience I've been through here. As an entrepreneur, if you're starting up your business, I think a key thing is, first of all, defining what your service is. And that was early on, that was a big step for me. And really helping put some clarity on what is it that I'm going to offer. I mean, and so that someone, if they're doing some research, they find me or whatever, that there's some material out there that really helps provide some clarity on what you do and what
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do for someone who's going to engage with you for if it's B2B or whatever that is, service. So I think you need to have that well defined. It needs to be clear. And strategies. I mean, how are you going to go to market? What is your unique selling proposition? Do you have a competitive advantage? And then as you're building your enterprise early on, is like, what is the processes? What do
Mm-hmm.
you do in order to take it from that initial contact to a sale to completing the service to billing? And
Knowing
there's
what you
these,
offer. Yeah.
yeah, and there's these steps, the processes, your work streams. And if you can define those early on, and then as you're building teams or building your team and building your organization, having that clearly defined and having the roles documented that people know
What they're
what they
doing,
do, how they do it, but most importantly, why they do what
why
they
they
do.
do it, the impact they're
You know,
having. I love it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you get people aligned with processes, it's going to reduce, some of the challenges, the stress, the anxiety, and you know, as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you're out there, you're just feeling like, I'm working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And not having that clarity when you really start stepping back and looking at it, you'll see that
Yeah.
that's some of the root cause.
Yeah. What a great tip you have. And what I love about what you've done is that you've clearly delineated that for yourself and it's clear on your website. It's really clear on what you're offering. I've seen so many people where they think they have clarity, but they're not communicating it to their audience, to their potential clients. So well done on that
Thank
front.
you.
Yeah, it's
Thank
great.
you.
Well, Joe, it's
Thank
been
you.
great having you as a guest on the
Well,
podcast.
thank you, Jenny. I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's great. So this is Jenny Rice with BizTip Podcast with very special guest today, Joe Krueger. Thanks again, Joe.
Thank you, Jenny.
That's a wrap on this episode of BizTips. For more insights, join us online. We share exclusive tips, resources, and strategies to help you grow and scale your business. Until next time, keep building, innovating, and making an impact.